Hello, everybody. It's Marcy from wavesofcommunication.com, and I'm here with another video for you. Today, I am digging into a topic that I've been thinking about a lot here lately. And I've been thinking about it because of all of the information I'm getting from people who I'm working with in my program, and also people who are reaching out to me on Facebook, and clients I'm just signing in to my program. This is a theme that is coming up here a lot lately. And today, when we look at the astrology of what's happening today, the planet Mercury is lined up directly conjunct with the sun. And that is an indicator to me as I look at my own astrology chart. And I was born on this day. In my own chart, Mercury is lined up with the sun. And on that day is a motivation for us. The sun is highlighting exactly our truth. Mercury's the communication planet and the thinking planet, and wherever we have that mindset, right? How we communicate our thoughts, how we communicate our truth. And that's why today I wanted to pull out this topic, because this is a big truth for me. And it's a truth for a lot of the parents who I'm working with, like I said. And I pulled this topic out because I know that there are parents who are struggling in their current therapy environments, and it's not necessarily their fault or even the therapist's fault. But the lack of progress, the block towards the progress, is actually coming from the provider end of things. Now, I know that I talk always about how parents are the best language facilitators, and my book is called Teach Your Child to Talk Faster Than Speech Therapy. But I know also I was a speech therapist for nearly 30 years, working in the trenches with all of the other providers who are out there. And there are many things. The whole reason I left my role as a speech therapist was because even as a therapist, I was disempowered. I wasn't able to help families get the best outcomes they were looking for in my role as a speech therapist. And there were reasons that was happening, systemic reasons and personal reasons about how I went about how I did speech therapy. And when I started to think about what to make my video about today, it really came down. This highlighted message kept coming to me, my truth about why I do this. And the truth that these parents who are reaching out to me lately are experiencing, because they are feeling, they're coming to me to get equipped and empowered because what they have experienced has either ill-equipped them or disempowered them in the process, and so the process has stopped. It's blocked somehow. There were progresses happening, maybe there were or not, and at this stage of the game, parents are feeling like they're fighting against schools and therapists for different reasons, and this fight against the provider who's supposed to be helping your child is what's blocking the progress. So when you get on the same page about things and do things together, then you can make even more progress. Because remember, I was a therapist and now I coach parents to do the work themselves. Your therapist can equip and empower you in the same way if you help them, okay? So what I've done today, I know this is kind of an unusual video for me, but it is a strategies video, right? So what I'm doing is today I'm reaching out to all those moms and dads, parents, grandparents, caregiver providers, whoever, who are frustrated right now with your therapist, because I want to explain to you why it happens, where these blockages come from. And then if and when these blockages happen to you, then you're going to know what to do. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to talk about 5 most common blockages. Let me show you here. I've got a graphic. I've got 5 ways that providers unknowingly block progress. And I say unknowingly because there is no provider who got into doing therapy or teaching your child or anything because they want to hurt your kid. None of them. They all intend to want to be helping, but they unknowingly or unconsciously block your progress because of these 5 areas. Number 1, the provider is focusing on goals for success only in their controlled environment. That's one way they block them. And I'm going to tell you, I've got slides for each of these to tell you what to do in each one. Number 2 is that providers will omit parents from the therapy planning stage and or the intervention stage. And parents need to be part of both of them. And number 3, reports weaknesses more than successes. So if your provider is always, every time you talk to them, they talk about what your child is not doing yet, or the things they haven't made, done. They're talking about the lack of skills rather than the things that they have achieved, right? Functional things we're talking about. And then number 4, the way that providers unknowingly block progress is that they focus on data and not on functional outcomes. And then they just collect data over time and the kiddos don't make progress. And then the number 5 way that providers unknowingly block progress is that they make premature choices about intervention, and then the child's it's not appropriate intervention by the time it rolls around, and it breaks down progress both now and at the end. So these are the 5 ways that providers do unknowingly block progress. And like I said, I'm going to say it one more time. Providers don't intentionally block the progress with your child. It happens when their focus goes away from their role, right? Their role is you hire or enlist or encourage or whatever, get a person in your life, in your child's life, to help them for a reason, to help you solve a problem that you have in your life. That's why you invest your time, energy, money, all of that into therapy or coaching. You do that to help solve your problems. And if you are continuing to experience the problem and your child is continuing to receive therapy, that disconnect is what I'm talking about here, why you're feeling these things. And so what I want to do is help you figure out why it might be happening in your house and let you know what to do. So let's move into the first one of these that I'm talking about, and that is where the provider focuses on goals for success that are only in the structured and controlled environments where they are responsible to care for your child. So what this means is that the goals will be to help your child make a certain skill level to make their next thing. So, for example, you want them to be in regular ed classes, they have to be able to meet certain criteria to be in regular education. They have to be able to sit or talk or potty train, whatever. In order to get your child to be moving up to the next level of learning, right? They have to meet these certain criteria. And that's where the schools stick a lot, or provider levels, like in an ABA situation. You can't move on to the next level until you've demonstrated that you've learned all the things at the previous level. That's one thing that happens. And so there are some suggestions that you can do when you find yourself in this situation. And the number 1 thing is that you tell your provider that you want help with home issues, even though you never see the therapist, okay? If your child is going to a public school and you don't see the school, ask the therapist to provide you with help. They may or may not provide you with that. If in fact you do see the therapist and you do drop your child off at therapy, or the therapist comes to your home and this is happening to you, right? The therapist may be making your child successful in their special room where they lock them away, or you not lock them away, but you put them in a room by themselves with the therapist where they bring their table or sit in a certain place or make your child stay in one place. That's the same thing that I'm talking about here, because remember, that's the therapist coming to bring their therapy center into your house versus helping you integrate whatever they're trying. You have to do is tell them that you want to, connect with them right now. And you want to talk with them about what you are going on in your home. All right. And so I just ask every single session time to talk with your therapist. And if they tend to not get to you at the end, then do it at the beginning. Do it at the beginning. Talk about the things that you are struggling with this past period of time between the last time you saw them till the time you're talking now. Don't wait till the end of the therapy session. Talk about it right when they show up. I'm glad you're here. This week we've been struggling with Joey climbing on the cabinets, or this week he wants to run out of the house all the time, or this week. Share your current struggles, because sometimes therapists will be focused on long-term goals or stuff they got to run or whatever, and then you never get those things handled. So you got to share them on the day right there. And then what you want to do is specifics. You need to get specifics if you want help with this. And the therapist, because they're not seeing your everyday environment all home, they're focused, remember, on what they bring, their lesson plan, their bag of toys, their goals they've got to get done. You want to help them understand what you need help with specifically. Like I said before, he's climbing the cabinet, or he's running out, or he's screaming or hitting me or something like that. This is when you need to move into getting strategies so that you can help do those things on your own. Remember, that therapist is focused on spending their time doing it. You're not going to change therapists anyway to do things in a different way. They've got you and a whole handful of other kiddos on their schedule, and they're going through in their head. They show up at your house, they're going through, they throw the next house, they're doing that kid. They show up the next house, they're doing that kid. And they're not focusing on you. As soon as they leave your house, leave that session, leave that whatever, they're done with you. They're not thinking about you. They can't. They've got 50 other kids to think about, right? 50 and then their own, right? So they're not spending the kind of time, I wonder what I could do about this, and I wonder what I could do about that you are. You're spending the time worrying and thinking about, I wish I knew how to solve these problems. And if you aren't, that's why you're struggling yourself, because you don't even know what you don't know. Right? You're just getting through the day, putting out fires. You have to take time and think about this. And I'm going to give you more strategies about that too. Let's move into the second one that I'm talking about here. And that is when the provider omits parents from planning and intervention activities. Sometimes this happens with or without you knowing, right? Or consciously or unconsciously, but it happens, okay? It happens when there are, every IEP meeting, they come planned with the whole thing already written. Right? So here's what you have to do if you want to make sure that you are not just part of the team, but the head of the team, right? Number one, prepare your own specific goals for plan development meetings. If you have things that you want your child to focus on at home, you need to come with those things to the table, because the whole reason your child goes to school or therapy or whatever is so that they're successful outside of that environment. And it's your job, those providers consider it your job to teach your child to be successful both in the school and at home. So you need to have goals that you want your child to learn that's going to make that job easier for you. Okay. They're teaching them goals that are going to make it easy for them at the school. You want to make sure that your own goals get on that plan too. Okay. And the second one is to provide your own data. Because remember, they're going to come to these meetings with their own data about what your child has done and what they haven't done from their evaluations and their whatevers. If you want them to understand your struggles in your house, then you have to provide your own data. And I mean hardcore data in the form of videos. He used to be doing this. He wasn't doing this, with dates on those videos. Okay. Journal entries. He was doing this. And the measurable outcomes is how many words did you hear him say? What behaviors that relate to the things that you understand about these goals that they're doing at school. that are measurable. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how to generate some measurable goals. But measurable means you can count how much time, how many times, how frequently they did it, how successfully they did it over time. And schools a lot of times will use a number of, 5 out of 10 tries. You don't have to count things that way. You can measure things over time. Eye contact frequency in a day. He's got eye contact 5 times in a day versus 2 times in a day. You can measure your outcomes, and you provide these numbers with you to the school. That is going to make you look like you belong at the table, okay? The only reason that they would push you out is if they think you don't know what you're talking about, right? Or they don't believe you. And the only way that you can let them know that you know what you're talking about and that they believe you is if you are prepared. It's the only way, right? And then when you're at that meeting, when you get a chance to talk, you remind those therapists, that a whole entire team, that you are 100% responsible for your child. While these people take responsibility and you give them some responsibility when you give your child over to them, you are ultimately 100% responsible for your child. And you have chosen these people to help you. You chose them. You have a choice. You always have a choice. And you chose these people to help you. So it is very important that you are on the same team, that you're all on the same team, that while you may sit on opposite sides of the table, it's about funding or time or some kind of investment that you're asking this other people on these team, these providers, to do for you. So you have some expectation of them. They also have expectation of you. And when you understand at these meetings what everybody's role is, and you establish yourself as the leader, the one main responsible party for your child, then you say, it's okay if you do those things with my child. You don't let them dictate to you. This is how we do things, and this is what we've decided your child needs. We has to include you. It has to. It has to. And if those people remind you that you don't, remember, these are deal breakers. These are deal breaker kinds of decisions, everybody. That's why I'm talking about it on this Mercury conjunct time. This is serious stuff. If these providers hold to these blockages behaviors with you and you can't work through them with these strategies, it is time to find a new provider. And there are alternatives. There are always alternatives. There are always alternatives. No matter what your budget is, no matter where you live, you can learn to teach your child yourself if someone else is blocking your progress, right? Or you can work hard with these strategies to learn how to work with those people. Because remember, nobody's out to hurt your child. None of these people have bad intentions. None of it. It's just a communication blockage. It's just a difference in focus, where they're focused versus where you're focused. And maybe they're focused on their boss who's telling them you got to do this way because of funding. And that's the only reason they're doing it. Okay? Because that's the reality of what happens. That's why you have to wait on waiting lists, because there aren't enough providers to provide everybody with therapists who can work with them, their kids 24/7 all the time. There just aren't enough in the world. That's a good thing that parents are better at language facilitation, right? So this blockage that comes from therapists, you can overcome it when you work with them. And if they insist on pushing you out of the process, taking away your responsibility, your number one responsibility for your child's functional development, someone tries to take that away from you, they don't have your best interest in heart. They have their best interest in heart. Why would that work? There is no reason that it would work. Parents know their kids better. You know this. Don't let them talk you into it because of their outside influence, because it could be their bottom line. It could be their bank account that's driving them to make these decisions and have you do these things and push you out of things and push you into more therapies. All right, let's get into the next one, because these blockages are real and this stuff really happens. So I see people joining me. If you have questions about this, or if this is happening to you in your life, you're being, you feel blockages. You feel it. Parents feel it. I know you do. That's why I'm doing this video, because people talk about it all the time to me. How frustrated they are, feeling either ill-equipped or disempowered by the providers they are investing time, energy, and effort into working with. If you're going to continue to do that, use these strategies to turn it around or do it. And like this video, by the way, if you do. Let's move into the next one, because these are serious. Okay, number 3. The third thing that therapists and providers do sometimes that blocks the process is when the provider focuses on the challenges more than the successes, okay? So whenever you hear them, again, they're focusing on these challenges. They offer suggestions. Here's what you got to do. You got to offer suggestions to structure intervention so the child is regulated and happy to participate, because the only reason a therapist would be always talking to you about challenges is when they are frustrated that they cannot work with your child, okay? Because if they are a therapist or teacher and they are wanting to teach your child, they're there with the intent to teach your child, that means your child is resisting them. They're resisting the teaching from that provider if that provider is communicating to you that they are challenged. That's what's happening, okay? So the first thing you can do to overcome that is to help that provider have a better space for your child who you know better than them, okay? So you need to offer suggestions to secure intervention so the child is regulated and happy to participate. They want to love that therapist. They can't wait for that therapist to show up at the house. They are excited about their therapy. And if your child is fighting going to therapy, they say no therapy, they say no miss whoever, they say no repeating, no talking, no. If they start saying the only way a kiddo is going to try hard is if they consistently feel success at least 85% of the time. This is neuroscience. This is not just me saying this. There are many studies. In fact, all of computer games that are designed keep everybody going at least 85% accurate. Bing, 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 you got it right, in order to keep you playing. Because if you keep getting them wrong, you don't want to play that game anymore. And that's what therapy all is. That's what school all is, especially for little kids. It's all a game. And how kids want to be engaged in learning with this game. And if they're not engaged in learning with whatever games your therapist is playing with your child, they're not benefiting. The progress is being blocked because your child's not happy about being there. The skill that they are working on in therapy, okay? So that you can help them see successes between. And then you offer your videos again as proof that the intervention's working, right? So if you're with your therapist, they're at the house, you're trying to facilitate a skill, your child is challenged with it. If your child's happy enough to get through a couple of reps and they have a little bit of experience doing something like that, like let's say they're, listening, you're working on facilitating listening more, and the child wants to get up and run around the room all the time, and they insist they sit down. So they work on listening while the child's jumping on the trampoline, and the child's still listening, and the child's jumping, and they move forward, and they're regulated and happy, and progress moves forward, right? Because you've just made a little adjustment to keep your kiddo happy during that learning, and then the learning continues, right? They can get back to their goals. So if they're focused over and over again on challenge, he won't do this, he can't do this, he's not doing this yet, blah, 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 that means that it's too hard. It's too hard, and the child is avoiding even trying the skill. So over and over and over, you're hitting the wall. And that's why you don't see progress. That's why the therapist's frustrated. That's why you're frustrated, and progress is blocked. The whole process has to be easier, okay? All right, let's move into the next one, number 4. And that is the blockage that happens when provider focuses more on data than on functional outcomes. And the unfortunate situation that's happened with therapy as the trend has moved towards evidence-based practices is that they have to have data to show that the evidence Like, how do we know that it's evidence-based? Well, because there's evidence in the form of data that has been collected in standardized, structured studies where people do the same things over and over and over with a whole bunch of kids, and they see how many of those kids things worked with, right? And so the problem is when these people go to start to work in therapy, they think they're doing a research study and they've got to collect all this data, and maybe their bosses tell them they've got to collect data because that's how they learned and went to school. And if they're in ABA, it's all about the data. In fact, the rules in ABA are you can't move up to the next level unless you've demonstrated that you can do the baseline skill. So the problem is that the kids don't like the skill or the energy in the first place because number 3 was going on. And now they're avoiding it and you're not getting any progress. And the therapist just keeps showing you the data, but they're only at 20%. They're still only at 20%. We have to keep doing the same stuff over and over again because they're only at 20%. This is going to block your progress, of course, because you're staying with the same skills over and over and your child's not even participating in the activity. So listen, what you need to do is if you're getting ABA in your house, especially if you're getting ABA in your house, just work with the ABA providers who come there or the people who make your goals, because remember, you're going to be part of the goal making anyway, and work with them to provide measure functional skills, way that they can count things that happen in your everyday life so they can watch and listen for increasing time. My child listened to me and stayed with me while we were cooking together or playing slime together or playing in the water or playing with chalk or riding or taking a walk or whatever your child wanted to do. And you were talking with them and you know for a long time, oh, my child stayed with me 2 minutes, or they stayed with me 30 seconds, or they stayed with me 20 minutes this time. Count and measure in your data, in your thing, today, every single day. You structure an activity with your child. It's structure meaning take a walk together, right? And during that everyday time that you spend together, count how many times your child does what they're measuring. Looked at you, started to talk, whatever. And you can also see how your child is imitating you, like they count on the ABA things, when you play in front of them with intention. Model, this is how we play with cars. Vroom, vroom, brrr, watch me, I'm doing it. And if your child is interested in looking at you, they will start to imitate you. Give them their own car and they're going to do their own thing because what you're doing is fun. And you'll see, at first, they're not going to do it very much, but if you keep doing it over time, they will start to imitate you. That's the data these ABA people are looking for. I get my child to imitate my actions 80% of the time, or 20% of the time, or 8 times in a half-hour session. All of those are measurable goals that you can use with therapists, that you can take with you to those things, because it's exactly the same way those therapists are collecting data. Okay. So the first thing is change your goals so that you're measuring functional things. And then the second one is to require your therapist to have a full 10 minutes of engagement time with your child before they start running programs. And this is really, really important because if you don't have this connection, your child's going to be from the very get-go trying to avoid this person because they don't like the drills. They don't like to run those drill things, the same thing over and over again. If they were avoiding them, they don't like them. And this whole sit down and got to do our job, you got to have some fun first and get your child to open up, because if you want those drill things to work at all with your child before they even start, you have to have a really good connection with whoever is running those programs so that your child is fully focused, paying attention, and then they're going to boom, 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 fly through and do those, demonstrate the skills and get the data that person's working for. If you do this 10 minutes first, it's very, very important, where your child's really engaging, where you throw out the goals and you're just tickling and running around and getting to know each other. The most important thing. And then you're going to offer your views of your everyday struggles. Okay. So it's not just videos of you working with your child that you're going to be sharing with these people. It's videos of you and your struggles. Okay. Because these people will see how your child is communicating through their behavior with their screams or their tantrums or whatever else they're doing. And you'll see how it looks. And then they will understand because they'll be able to see on the video what triggered them to be upset and what helped them calm down. Because you've got it there on the video for them to see. And again, if you think that your therapists don't trust you or don't listen to you or don't believe you when you tell them that their kids are doing great stuff while you're doing language facilitation because all they're doing is drill work with your child, they're never going to see the stuff you see because you are facilitating language that's coming out of your child, and the imitation stuff is just facilitating what they want to hear. How many times does your child say what they're supposed to say so they can tick it off on their box? That's what data collection is all about. And if your therapist spends 10 to 15 minutes of your session documenting data, and then you've got 10 minutes at the beginning where they're just having play around time, they're not going to have a whole lot of time for drill work stuff. Right? And the other thing that that's going to do is it's going to teach that therapist, because if they spend 10 minutes every time they come getting to know your child better, they're going to get to know your child better. They're going to understand what they like and don't like. They're going to understand what makes them happy and calm and what makes them fired up and not working. They're going to get to know your child, okay? And if they don't come with some activity to do with your child, then you can set it up. Have some soap and water in the bathtub and say, look, I set up some soap and water in the bathtub. Why don't you guys go play in there for 10 minutes before you do your thing? Set it up and give it to them to do. Say, it's okay. I just want you to do that, because that's what your child loves. And the therapist's going to do what they do. They're just going to play. And they might do drilly stuff because they can't shut it off, but it doesn't matter because that's not your time. You dictated, I want 10 minutes of just connection time. And that's how you get that therapist's mind off of the data and onto your kid. And that's what you want. That's when they can really help your child. That's when they turn on their intuition and they turn into an intuitive therapist or provider instead of a data-based, evidence-based provider. And that's what you want. You want somebody who appreciates the evidence because they see the improvement through it. That's what we all do, right? We all appreciate evidence of success, but it doesn't have to be numbers, right? And you can see it in video a lot easier with spoken language development, especially little kids, than you can on any kind of score that you can get on any kind of standard test, especially if they have 10 minutes time, right? It's just really, really important that you connect. All right, let's move into number 5. The fifth reason that providers block, the fifth way, I guess, that providers will block progress sometimes. And that's when the provider makes premature. That means 6 months plus choices about intervention. And this is probably one of the main reasons that I decided to do this video, is because right now I'm getting a lot of calls from parents who are telling me that their kids are going into pre-K, or they're going into kindergarten, or they're going into the next level of school, and they've been home all year. And schools are now in February already dictating placements and classes for kids in August and September when school's going to be starting, okay? And so what is happening is parents, especially parents who have been following me fairly recently, have seen a lot of difference in their kids because they've been doing language facilitation, and they're not looking anywhere near like they looked when they were first evaluated by the system, by the school, the early intervention, or whatever. And because of the COVID situation where a lot of appointments are being done on Zoom calls, they're using these evaluation teams, and the people who are making decisions about your kiddo are using old information from that first evaluation. And parents have been working 2 to 3 hours every day with their kids doing language facilitation, and they look a lot different. And they don't necessarily need those special ed classes and all those hardcore goals are anymore, because the child's already met most of the things that they had on their goal within months of their IEP goal. usually they meet those goals within months of parents doing language facilitation, and they have to do a new one. So here's what you're going to do if your provider, school, therapy, whatever, they start to make plans for your child to be in any kind of a more restrictive educational environment, okay? Number one, remind the provider that you are working 2 to 3 hours per day in addition to the services that they provide to your child. So you remind them that they're not only just getting what they get from you, they're getting what they get from me, all right? And then you want to request a comprehensive reevaluation before placement into a more restrictive educational environment. So if your kiddo's not in school yet and they're talking about his first school experience needs to be special education, you're going to request a re-evaluation, even if your evaluation is less than 1 year old, because they will use an evaluation up to a year old to qualify a child for educational and therapy and insurance services. Up to a year, sometimes 6 months, but an older child can be a year. And if you've been doing language facilitation, your child looks very, very different than that. So what you want to do is ask to be a reevaluation, and then they're going to tell you you're going to have to wait, because there are wait lists for these evaluations. They don't just schedule them quick and do them because they've got lots and lots of kids to place. That's why they start doing it 6 months ahead, because they have so many. You just go ahead and let them place those other kids and ask you to be on the bottom of the wait list, where you can wait and have time to work with your kiddo 2 to 3 more hours a day, every day, and facilitate language while you are motivated to keep your child's skills going up so that they don't qualify for those rooms anymore. And then you want to offer your videos showing your recent successes, because if you've been doing language facilitation, and like I said, this is what happens to people. They follow me for a couple months, way before they even sign on to work with me. And they have already seen changes in their kids just because what they do with strategies like I've given you on this video, and they want to get to the next level. They want to move up. They need more help to get past some of these things that they are struggling with. That's why parents need therapists or therapy providers to help them understand how to get their kids to the next level, because it's not normal. Your kid's late talking, right? It's not typical development. So you want to know, how does my atypically developing child, how do I get him to get up and catch up with the other kids? Because they're just late talking. They're just not talking yet. How do you facilitate the words they need, right? And remember, with speech therapy, the goal is on getting more words out, right? They always consider your progress if your child is saying more. And with language facilitation, there is a period of time where your kiddo might say less, but what they're saying is theirs. And it's not what they were prompted to say. It's coming out of them spontaneously. They're initiating the speech rather than it being pulled out by someone else. And that's what you're trying to facilitate. So if you want to see that, then you have to take a lot of video with your kids, because those words are going to pop out when you least expect it. Not with the flashcards, not with the other things. Remember, kids are resistant to those things if they're in challenges, right? Because the kids who love therapy, the kids who are going and making progress and imitating words and saying a whole bunch of stuff, that's not the parents I'm talking to here, because there are many wonderful, thousands and thousands and thousands of amazing therapists out there who are working very hard to help children be successful in their homes, right? Now, during COVID, the way the situation is happening in therapy is all different. And therapists who used to be super successful in their clinics or in your homes are not as successful on Zoom as they used to be, because they weren't in coaching modes. These strategies will help you help those therapists help you better. Okay. And that's how you avoid the blockages, because if you've got help, mama, use it. Use it. That's what this is all about. But don't fight against them. Okay. So remember, these are the ways for you to encourage these situations to work out for you. And it happens where sometimes the people sitting on the other side of the table do not respond to these strategies, because I do have families in my program who live in the United States, and all over the world is happening to people. Scotland, Australia, UK, US, all over. It's happening to parents where they get excited about language facilitation, see improvement with their children, and then tell the school that They want to see more natural stuff, that the hardcore prompting, that the repeated stuff, that their kid is not enjoying the school at all. And they really want to work with the school to have a better, happier environment for their kid to be learning. And the school stonewalls them. And they use these evidence, this data about why we have to force kids to do things sometime for their own good kinds of philosophy. That's where a lot of this evidence comes from, is kids being forced to do stuff and then somebody wrote it down. Okay. If you want your kid to get the same data through being forced, you wouldn't be watching this video. Right? You would be feeling the frustration, just like your therapist feels frustrated because your child's not participating. You feel frustrated because your child's not participating because you're taking the initiative to make the investment to go to the therapy or pay the therapist even more. You know what I mean? If it's not working out for you, it's time to have a conversation. And if they won't talk with you, it's time to leave it. Because now is the time where everybody, Mercury is lined up with the sun. People are communicating their truth to you. They are being honest about who they are, just like me. I love therapists. I love all therapists. I was a therapist, and I used to be like a lot of these things. I used to think that I knew better than moms. Sometimes I didn't even believe moms when they told me crazy things that their kids did. Now that I'm a language facilitator coach, I hear these crazy, amazing things that these kids are doing. I hear these stories every day that moms are telling me, my kid started singing karaoke. My kid started doing, interviewing his sister, started, putting on shows, things that these kids never used to do, never used to have the confidence to do. Because as a language facilitator parent, you are equipping, empowering your kids, just like I am equipping, empowering you. And you need that from your therapist or your guide, your language facilitation consultant, right? Make your speech therapist into your language facilitation consultant. And that's what people do to me. That's why you work with me, right? Okay, so those were those 5. Really quick, one more. I'm going to go over them just to see if you spot them in your house, in your life. Number 1 focuses on goals for their success in their environment and leave you out of the picture. Number 2, they leave you out of the picture all completely and they do everything on their own. Number 3, they only report weaknesses and they talk about things your kids aren't doing. Number 4, they focus more on the data and not the functional outcomes. So they keep your kid doing the same thing over and over and over again until they meet another data. Number 5, they make premature choices about your child's intervention based on their system. Okay. You don't need a system. You just need language facilitation to teach your child to talk. And if you want to learn how to be your child's language facilitator, you're in the right place. YouTube here. There's 350 videos on my YouTube channel where you can learn. There's a playlist that's called Get Started with Language Facilitation here. Just start watching videos and taking action. Remember, just watching videos isn't going to help your child start talking. You've got to make these changes. You've got to figure out your truth and start talking about it all day, every day with your child. 2 to 3 hours per day. Talk about how you want to help them develop their talking. Talk about how you're working with your therapist. Don't make it a secret. Bring it all out into the open right now so the sun can highlight your communication and thinking about communication. How does my child communicate? How do I want them to communicate? How are we facilitating this? What plan do we have? Right? Now is the time to get it straight. So while the schools are making plans for fall, you start making plans for now. What are you going to do today and tomorrow and the next day so that you will be facilitating language every day so that when school starts in the fall, your child's going to be ready to go. Better than he looks now because it's going to be 6 months away, and you're going to see so much better. The opportunities are going to be many, many more for your child. Spoken language opens every door for your child, and you can teach them how to talk. faster than therapy. You can. Here's my book really quick. I'll show it to you. It's called If It Isn't Fun, Teach Your Child to Talk Faster Than Speech Therapy. You can get it on Amazon and Audible. You can look at my website, wavesofcommunication.com, to watch a free 90-minute class to learn about language facilitation and how to use all my resources. And you can also learn how to work with me as a client. I work with you, hold your hand, help you work with your providers in your life if you have them, work with the schools, find the right educational environment for your child, get the right evaluation, and even support you as you go to these IEP meetings and talk to those people so that you can feel equipped and empowered to be the number one person to take responsibility for your child's development. No need to farm it out to anybody else. There are things that you can't teach your child that you'll find other people to teach. But you don't need this, not communication. And you want to find people who are going to work with you to teach your child. And you're going to help your child learn those skills and learn how they're teaching your child. Because if you don't know how to teach them, figure out how they're doing it so that you can piggyback and teach your child too. That's what all of this is about. Equipping and empowering parents. Get your boxing gloves out over here. Use your power to teach your child to talk faster than therapy. You can do it. Parents are doing it all over the world. There's no reason you can't. And if you want guidance, then reach out to me at wavesofcommunication.com. I'll see you all on my next video. Bye for now.